It sounds like that everything's ramping up and you're about to head on a pretty long-looking European tour, right?
Yeah, and it's gonna go even further. So it'll go to Europe and then the America, and
Uh-huh.
then I go back to Europe, and then that brings me all the way to August. And then after August, I have August off,
Yeah.
and then it goes into like September, October, which I'm talking to going into like places like China and Indonesia and Japan and
Jeez.
Australia. So
Are you mentally prepared for this?
God no. No, 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 no. God no. I mean, I don't know. I seriously don't know how I'm gonna do it. I mean, the first European tour and then the U.S. tour, first U.S. tour will be with a full band.
Yeah.
I don't know if I will go the full band for the second part of the European tour or the you know eastern part of the world, but we'll see. I don't know. You never know.
Yeah.
I change my mind often, so.
See how
Yeah.
how well you get along with the other band members before you decide if you take them back out again.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
I feel like there was a time recently on one of your last albums when you were kind of like, I'm not going to do any bands anymore because my audience doesn't want a band, so I'm going to go solo. Like, when did that change? Am I right on that?
no, 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 you're correct. That was something for me. I think what it was is that I began to feel kind of like guilty that I was getting asked to do, well, people just asked me like, when are you going to come back with a band?
Yeah.
And so I did. I did that Maraqopa tour with the band, and it wasn't received that well. A lot of my fans just didn't really care for it, which I thought was really kind of weird because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't make acoustic records. I never have made an acoustic record.
Yeah, but there's that image of you, I guess. Like, I loved the band, and I remember when you telling me that I was thinking like, oh man, no, I love the band. I love the band. But I guess
Right.
that's an image that people have is because you're just a solo name or whatever. So they kind of have
Right.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So they expect you to be like, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, it's kind of more, it's a weird thing, man. So
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, I was going to do the band thing, and I had a chance to do it in the last record, and I was like,
Mhm.
no, I just don't feel it's time, and I don't feel right about doing it. And a lot of it was money though too. It's also
Mhm.
really expensive to fly like a lot of people, like 10 people to Europe with you or whatever. So,
That's right,
but
because
yeah,
it's not just a band; it's a choir too, right? Is that what I heard?
it's more like it's a condensed choir.
Uh-huh.
It's more like it's basically like three or four female singers.
Oh,
So
okay. That's
no choir, but I do want to do I do want to do a full. I do want to do a full choir at some point, but without a band. Just sort of like what I did with the Sisters
hmm
album.
hmm
Just do that and tour that, and nothing else. I
Do
think
you,
that'd be really pretty. But
do you do it like with a visual component too, like Polyphonic Spree would do with all the robes and everything? Do you get them up there in costume?
we did the robe thing. We did the robe thing for the record release, the last record release. We were all silver, and
Uh-huh.
um, but I don't know. The robe thing's kind of a funny thing because I first saw it done with the Danielson family were the first people I saw that done with.
hmm
And they looked awesome. But and then I saw Polyphonic Spree, obviously in concert. I thought that was really cool.
hmm
I don't know if I'll do it again. The outfit thing is kind of it's a funny thing, because I think it does work, but at the same time, it's also, and I love kitsch, dude. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, oh my God, I love bands that dress up in costume, and that's what I love about garage music so
hmm
much. But I think bringing that element into, I guess, I don't know, the psych-folk world. It's been done. I
hmm
mean, Sufjan did it.
hmm
Other people have done it. That have been outside the garage rock world. I just don't. I don't know, man. I think if I did it, I think it'd be maybe just like a matching color
hmm
thing. I don't know. I don't know if I would do necessarily the robes or costumes just yet. I don't know if I'm that far. We'll see.
Kind of be, for anyone who doesn't know the context of it, that's probably a pretty fun site to walk up on too. Like, what?
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Well, for this, so what we're talking about here now is a trilogy.
Yeah.
At no point did I ever know we were talking about a trilogy, and from what I gather, neither did you through that first and second record. Like, you didn't.
No, in fact, I mean, I haven't gone back and looked at this, but if I remember correctly, you may have even asked me the last time I was in the CU if I would if there'd be another chapter, and I think I said no, there wouldn't be,
because everything comes in threes.
Right.
Yeah.
And initially that wasn't my plan. Again, that really wasn't my plan to do a third.
Yeah. So when did that occur to you? Like, okay, this is going to be that story continue. As soon
as I wrote the first song off this new album, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be, here we go. Apparently this isn't done. So, and that's kind of what happened with Brothers and Sisters of the Eternal Sun as well. It's, the first song I wrote off that record was Return to Maraqopa, and that was kind of when I knew that, as well. But I really do believe that this is the last, one. That being said, though, I came to a realization this morning. So it's kind of the timing of this question and conversation are very interesting, or funny. And that is, I think that I am kind of embracing my I don't even know if it's a genre or not. It's probably not even a genre. I don't think it's a genre, but it's like I'm embracing my sci-fi nerdiness, if you will. And I think there will be other records that will be just as maybe spiritual and thematically, and sci-fi thematically based. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that will happen. I mean, I don't doubt that's going to be the road I take, only because of what I watch and what I read, and I mean that, like, not on the sci-fi, not on that level of Star Trek or Star Wars.
Alligator versus shark.
Right. Not that level, but really on the level of people like Rod Serling, who I just absolutely amazed by. I just picked up on his second show that he did after the Twilight Zone called Night Gallery.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, Night Gallery was done not too long after the last Twilight Zone episode, and when he was done with Twilight Zone, he did this whole lecture series in colleges, and he go to universities and speak there, and then he eventually did this new thing called Night Gallery. And if you see it, it's really 70s, and it's blatantly 70s. But if you can get past that, it's really, really great writing, and he wrote a lot of it. So, but yeah, he is a major influence on how I am writing now and seeing things. So I don't know. Smart sci-fi is smart, but I think a lot of it is sort of being kind of dumbed down by.
Oh, sure.
By
Alligator versus shark.
Yeah, totally. yeah. Or even Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, I love Star Wars, but I can see what you're getting at, with that. So then I would kind of wonder, though, outside of just being a sci-fi fan as you are, how much of that is reflective of your own life, your own journey, whatever you want to call it? Because, as you're writing Visions of Us on the Land, and here's this continuation of a story,
right?
That took place 2 albums before it. At what point are you just sticking to a script, or at what point are you letting your own personal story you kind of intertwine within this, or a spiritual journey, or whatever it might be?
I think this. I got in this interesting talk with a guy the other day about this, and he was saying how much of this character resembles you, and I said my answer to that was that my girlfriend actually believes that the character in this story or dream does represent me. I still don't know if I'm convinced of that. What I will say, though, is that since having this dream, since going on this, since delving into this, whatever the story is or was, it really has consumed my life in a really weird way.
Much like a successful sci-fi artist would have to live through whatever creation they just.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Another interesting thing that he brought up, which I thought was interesting too, is that like, the character in this story, Silver Catherine, in this record, in this part of the story, it is she makes the decision to not go to heaven. Mm-hmm. She decides to not go with the ship, I guess, if you will. And she stays here on Earth with him. Mm-hmm. And this entire record is about what happens when the ship leaves and they are left at their own devices, and, on this planet that is now vacant. Mm-hmm. And now could you imagine the entire Earth as a ghost town? That is so, I can't even wrap my brain around that, but that's what's happening in this part of the story. But he made this interesting comment to me. He said, have you ever thought about that maybe the Silver Catherine would represent your girlfriend that you have now, Mm-hmm. I said, that's interesting because, she came into my life at such an interesting time, because, on a timeline, just to give you a timeline, I had the dream. I was on this crazy, crazy spiritual high. I thought I was nuts. I thought I was crazy, actually. I thought I was crazy. Committing myself to a hospital crazy, Yeah. And
as most good artists, sort of are.
Right. So. Right. And she just came by. I'm waving at her through the window. Anyway, so I had this crazy moment, and then what happens is that directly after that, my life just took a total nosedive. I went from the light really into the black, and yeah. Right before, let's see, and that was in the fall of 2012, where kind of things went really dark. And then around that time, it was around September, maybe about 2 weeks, 2 weeks before my latest son was born. I tried taking my life. Okay.
I didn't know. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. Wow.
No, it's fine. I'm alive.
Sure, you are. Yes.
I tried taking my life, and that was, I've had a few suicide things, my dealings with that whole stuff in my life before, which is also why I thought I was nuts, and when I initially had this dream, that's why I thought I was crazy, because my entire family has a whole history of mental illness and blah, blah, blah. And
that's rough to deal with, even when you know it's there,
Oh yeah, for sure,
it's a problem and still you're not able to get past it.
Right. So in the fall of 2012, long after I had this dream, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, I'm in love with Jesus, and what if he does come back in a spaceship? Just sounding really nuts, And then I just had that went to this real dark period where I realized a lot of things about myself that weren't right. I needed to change them, but because I'm changing those things, life really got bleak, and friends were no longer around, and I found myself in this really dark place, and it led to the suicide attempt, and I didn't go through with it, I think because of guilt, believe it or not, because I have this newborn son, and but it was around this time that my now girlfriend entered my life in a big way, and we've been friends for over 20 years.
You and your girlfriend?
Yeah, my girlfriend and I have been friends for 20 years. And she saw me go through 2 marriages and 2 kids, and I mean, my life just went to shambles. But she was there, and then it was not long after that attempt, I went on tour with Sharon Van Etten, and not knowing what I was going to do, and her only job on that tour was just to come keep me company. And we hadn't spoken in over 6 months at that point. I just said, hey, I know I haven't talked to you in a long time. I know this sounds really crazy, but I'm going through some really rough times. I'm going on this tour. I don't want to be alone. Can you just come with me and hang out? That's all you have to do. You have to work. I'll just hang out.
Yeah.
And she said, I'll think about it. And then she did. She came on tour with me. But long story short, this interviewer, this guy I did, this interview with the other day, he said, it could be possible that this person, in your life, your girlfriend, would represent, and I guess in some sort of prophetic way,
Well,
if I am the character in this dream, then she is like the Silver Catherine character, I guess, that I didn't know was going to happen,
All right. No, but that's what I'm getting at, though. When we were talking about, here you are writing a record and you're writing the lyrics, and maybe you have a specific story in mind, but at some point, these, even if it's personal beliefs or more specifically life moments, would have to start trying to find their way in, even in just stream of consciousness, So
yeah, sure.
And that's what I wondered. Like, at what point do you say, oh no, that's me. I don't want to write that. I have to write a character,
I don't know. I mean, it's something that I definitely, I'm still sort of like on the fence about, whether it is me or not. I mean, I'm just saying right now, I think there's lots of similarities, that he was a musician and I'm a musician, and
sure, you write what you know.
Yeah, totally. But I don't know. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. It isn't like I'm single and fancy free. Like, I have a real life and responsibilities. So.
Well, I did hear you in one interview. You were talking about, or maybe it was the press statement or something like that, where you said, it's a record about disappearing from society to explore universal truths.
Sure, yeah.
I'm a guy who reads the news obsessively and everything else, and I'm like, yeah, well timed. I feel like that's what a lot of people are trying to do right now. I mean, maybe the world's always been a crazy place, and maybe it's always the present tense that you're going, the world's a crazy place, no matter what area you're in. But as you know, and I look around, and it just looks really fucked up out there.
Right, yeah.
Like that seems like a record that would completely make sense for right now, I mean,
yeah, it's kind of weird because at the same time, I get what you're saying. But at the same time, I think it's also a record, I believe, that is saying unplug yourself and get out in some way, Like, there's this interesting line. I think it's interesting because it only implies what we're talking about. But there's this line in Return to Maraqopa where I say out there is nowhere and inside is endless. And it's like, I really do. I try to live by that line a lot, where it's like, out there, it really is nowhere. I mean, it's all, especially today, it all just seems like we're so just plugged in and connected, but we're not connected at all.
I'm kind of glad you have the outlook you do, because it makes for great music and all of it.
Yeah,
I want to ask you real quick about something outside of your album, though. Tumbledown. It's a movie, and you did the whole soundtrack to it, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
I mean, how was my experience with it?
Yeah, because were you doing this at the exact same time as the record, or did this come right after it, or before? Or how did it all work out for you?
I started recording Tumbledown in 2014.
Okay.
In the summer of 2014. Took me 6 months.
Yeah.
How was my experience? My experience was awful. If I'm going to be completely frank and honest with you, it was horrible. I would probably never, ever, ever do a soundtrack again.
Yeah, but you did it, so you got that on your belt. So why?
I did it.
Yeah, what was so bad about it?
It took a long, long time, and there was a lot of politics and a lot of dealing with investors and who knew nothing about creativity or music or whatsoever. It was just about money. And I'm happy for them. I'm glad it worked out great. But like,
so it's compromised art, is what I guess
it's
you think
compromised art, and it really wasn't. It didn't turn out exactly how I wanted it to be.
That's sad.
It is sad.
Although
like
from what I've heard is beautiful, by the way. What I've heard is really beautiful. But
thank you. I'm glad you like it.
I feel for it right there. All right, dude. We're gonna get off here because that was fun, and I think we've talked about everything there is to talk about, at least for today.
Definitely.
Good luck out on the tour, man.
Thanks, man.
And I'm happy you're alive. I am so happy that you're still
Thank
alive.
you.
And we're not talking about you like Elliott Smith or something like that, because I would much rather have your music than your legacy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Quick side note. I do want to say, though, I do want to say when you're talking about that, I often think about that, about like musicians who are no longer here. We're just left with all they had, and maybe it's 1 or 2 records, and that was it. I often do think about people like Elliott, Jason Molina, and Kurt Cobain, all these other great people. Man, I wish they were still around, to make good records. And it's a bummer. I am glad I'm still here. I'm glad I'm still for at least for the sake of my kids. So
yeah.
But yeah,
you be selfish in that way. I'll be selfish in the way that this means I keep getting new Damien Jurado music. As long as you keep.
All right.
It.
Deal.
It was great talking to you, man.
You, man. It's good talking to you.
I'll see you around sometime.
Okay.
Right, bye.
Bye.